everybody. So check it out. We are here. We're in Israel in an area that's known as Beit Shan. What's directly behind me is the Roman city of Scythopolis. Check this out. Up on the hill, the mountain behind me, that is Beit Shan, where the bodies of Jonathan and Saul were hung, and just over that way is Mount Gilboa, where both Jonathan and Saul were killed. And the reason I bring these things up and wanted to film here, a couple of different things. One is because we recently finished the life of David, and now we're in the book of Judges, but this helps us to connect with both the life of David and the book of Judges, because in the book of Judges, we know that the people of Israel, they would start doing good, and then they would turn from God, then they start inviting the pagan culture into their lives, then they started living like the pagans, and then the enemy would conquer them, and then they'd be subdued by the enemy, they'd be servants, they'd be slaves of the enemy, they'd cry out to God, and God would give them victory and bring them up. And the same cycle right here. But what we see with the people of Israel is, listen, when they turned from God, they ended up with their life in ruins. And certainly as we look out here, we see a place that's left in ruins. In ruins here, ancient city, a Roman city, the people were greatly involved in all different types of sin, but also was destroyed by several different earthquakes over the centuries and from centuries ago. But again, it represents a life apart from God, a life that has gone into pagan culture, a life that ends up in ruins, and certainly that is where we are as we look at the book of Judges. So last time we were with Deborah, it was early on with Deborah, and Barak was the one who was called up to fight against the enemy. You have Jabin, you have Sisera. They're called to fight up against the enemy. And Barak is a little bit timid. He doesn't have strong faith. He's a good military leader, though we'll see some of his military strategies in this message, but he didn't have the faith. So what does he say? He says, listen, Deborah. Deborah was a spiritual leader. He says, listen, Deborah, I'm only going to go in this battle against Sisera and against Jabin. I'm only going to go into this battle if you are with me, but if you don't go, I'm not going. So here's this man, a great military leader, saying, I ain't going to do it unless you go with me. I kind of interesting. Nevertheless, Deborah responds and she says, and we saw this last time, I will go with you, but a woman will get the honors of taking out the enemy. Wow. And that does happen here. In fact, it's Deborah and Jael that gets the victory, or both of the women are the ones who get the honor of taking out the enemy. But in this, we are going to continue. We're going to pick up in verse 8 from Judges chapter 4. And here we read, and Barak said to Deborah, if you will go with me, then I will go. But if you will not go, I will not go. So she says, surely I will go with you. Nevertheless, there will be no glory in it for you, for in the journey you are taking. For the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. And then what's going to happen? Deborah arose and she went with Barak to a place called Kadesh. So this is the place that we pick up. What do we come to? Show you here. Oh, I cannot believe it. Edit. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's, oh my, yeah, what the heck is going on? What the heck? How did that happen? The whole thing changed on me. The whole thing changed on me. Okay. That leads us to here, number one, we note, it's what Barak knew. What he knew is he lacked faith. Hence, Deborah, I'm not going unless you are going with me. If I do, a woman's going to get the glory, says Deborah. And note a faith lesson here. If you lack faith, do what you know how to do. At least Barak did that much. I need help, but I will go. It's okay if it's even a woman that has to go with me, I'll be good with it. And notice also in verse 10 as you continue reading here, Barak begins to take some necessary steps. What happens? He may not be a man of great faith, but he does what he knows how to do, as I mentioned. in verse 10 tells us, after he's assured that Deborah's there, that she's the spiritual helper, he being a military leader, what does he do? He does what he can do, and he assembles 10,000 troops. Now, this is a significant step. Why is that? Because although the enemy has 900 chariots, that'd be like 900 tanks, at least he assembles 10,000 troops. Israel has, get this, Israel has zero chariots, 0 tanks, they have 0 weapons, but he had enough faith to go, okay, although we don't have any weapons, and also since Sisera, the enemy, has 900 chariots like tanks, how many more troops they would have had than Israel's 10,000 troops? They would have had countless troops. But Sisera still says, okay, I will do what I can. I'll do what I know how to do. I at least know how to motivate people. Think of this. He took the necessary steps. Note this. Let's get another faith lesson here. Don't worry about what you don't have, but trust in the Lord. So Barak could have looked out 900 tanks, hundreds of thousands of troops. I've got 10,000 troops. Deborah assures me the victory is going to be here. He takes the little steps. It reminds me of the man in the Gospel of Mark chapter 9. He has the dad whose son had a demon, and when the demon would overcome his son would be thrown into the fire or thrown into the water, and he was worried that his son was going to die, and he meets Jesus, and he asks Jesus, can you help my son? Can you deliver him? And then in Mark chapter 9, verse 23, Jesus said to the man, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Immediately, the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. I think Barak was probably in that place. I think most people are in that place. Okay, I'm supposed to do this. I don't have that confidence. I don't have that faith. Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. My friends, that's an honest prayer, isn't it? And again, what does Barak do? He's not this great man of faith. He obviously stumbles. He has a little faith, but he does what he can. I think that's worth making a good note of. Let's read from there. Picking up in verse 11. This is my pulpit today. Thank you, Craig. Craig is my pulpit. This is what happens when you're in the middle of nowhere doing a film. Now Heber, the Kenite, of the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, had separated himself from the Kenites and pitched his tent near the terebinth tree of Zanim, which is beside Kadesh. And they reported to Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. So Sisera gathered together all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him from Harosheth Haggayim to the river Kishon. By the way, I know what I just read, and some of you right now are saying, hey, doesn't Pastor Tom know that he's nowhere near these areas that are spoken of here? He's not near Mount Tabor. He's not near the Kishon. Yes, I do know that. As I mentioned, we happen to be here in the area of Beit Shan and the area of Scythopolis. Thought what a great place to bring this, because the life of Judges represented a people, Israel, that were always in ruins. So yes, folks, for those of you who are aware, I do understand that. But verse 14, Deborah says to Barak, up, for this is the day in which the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand, Barak. Has not the Lord gone out before you? So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him, and the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and all his army with the edge of the sword before Barak, and Sisera alighted from his chariot and fled away on foot. But Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as Harosheth Haggayim, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. Not a man was left. All right, thank you, pulpit man. As we look at this, we're introduced to a man named Heber. Okay, he moved his family from the Kenites. It tells us that in verses 11 to 12. And they were a people in an area that was dominated by Sisera. Now, I want you to keep this man Heber in mind because he becomes a very significant player in this story. As we continue reading here, we notice this in verses 13 through 16 with another observation. Notice this. With, what's his name? I can't even remember his name right now. With Barak. How can I forget his name? With Barak, he looked at the problem and he knew he lacked resources, right? He knew he lacked resources. In Psalm 20, beginning of verse 7, the Bible says, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Again, we've already looked at Barak. 900 chariots or 900 tanks. How many troops? Hundreds of thousands of troops. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of troops against the 10,000 troops of the people of Israel who had no weapons, had no chariots or anything. But nevertheless, what did he do? He knew he lacked resources, but he still trusted in the name of the Lord. Again, Barak isn't a great man of faith. Like the man who said to Jesus, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief, so it is with you and me. Think of this. If the Israelites would trust God in this most hopeless situation, God would deliver them from even the most impossible situation. In the case of Israel, they were outmanned, they were outgunned, and they were outpositioned by Sisera. However, this was what God commanded, and it was a battle that required definite faith. Same thing with you and me. You may be in a situation you're thinking, I'm outmanned, I'm outgunned, I'm outpositioned, I have no money to pay the bills, or I got this going on with my relationships, I have this going on with my family, this is going on with my husband, this is going on with my life, or these drugs have overtaken me, or whatever it is. We're outmanned, we're outpositioned, we're outgunned, but what do? We trust in the name of the Lord our God. Some trust in chariots, some in horses. Barak didn't have the horses, he didn't have the chariots, but what? We will remember the name of the Lord our God. We think of this. It's a lesson in faith. Hebrews chapter 11 tells us, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews chapter 11:6 teaches, without faith it's impossible to please God, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Don't forget that. Our life is a lesson in faith, and I believe that God puts us in impossible situations so that we would learn to trust him. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13, it strengthens us. For there the Bible tells us, even if we are faithless, God remains faithful. He cannot deny himself. What happens here? The Bible teaches that God routed the enemy. God teaches his people that God makes the difference. God teaches you and I that he makes the difference. And I look at so much of the Bible is a lesson or a motivation, a teaching, a learning for us to trust in God when you don't have anything else that you can trust in. You can't trust in yourself. You've got to trust in the Lord. We can be outmanned, we can be outgunned, we can be outpositioned. But remember this, God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. So what else? God puts us in impossible situations, so we will have to trust him. We don't have a choice. We have to trust God. And maybe you're there right now. Say, God, help me. Trust in him. Let him have the victory. Call upon him. Pray to him. Invite him into your circumstances. And don't say, well, God doesn't even care about this. How do you know God doesn't care about it? God cares about you. And if it's a big deal to you, it's a big enough deal for God to get involved. But you have to invite him into your circumstances. You have to invite him into your life. All right, I need my pulpit bearer again. Verses 17 through 20. Listen to this. However, Sisera had fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber. Remember I said, remember Heber? Heber's going to be a big deal in a few minutes. The wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Jabin, king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. There was peace between them. So everybody's thinking, oh, Jael or Yael, this must be good. There's peace between them. And Jael, she went out to meet Sisera and said to him, turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me and do not fear. And when he had turned aside with her into the tent, she covered him with the blanket. Then he says to her, she says to him, or he said to her, please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. So she opened a jug of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. Oh, and he said to her, stand at the door of the tent, and if any man comes in and inquires of you and says, is there any man here? You shall say no. All right, in fact, I can hold on to it for just another second. Notice what we have here. Back in verse 11, Heber moved his family from the Kenites. And as I mentioned, this is going to become significant. The place he moved them to was Zanim, near Kadesh. It was away from the city, but it turns out to be on the escape route from Sisera. Listen, it's not a coincidence. God planned him to move there, the escape route from the Sisera, because God had planned this victory long before Deborah or Barak ever even knew there was going to be a problem, or they were even called into battle. So Heber relocates on, it just happens to be on the escape route of Sisera. And then the text introduces us here to Jael, or Yael, who happens to be the wife of Heber. No, friends, this is not a coincidence. Verse 21. And then Jael, Heber's wife, this is one of my favorite passages in the Bible. She took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand and went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple, and it went down into the ground, for he was fast asleep and weary, and he died. And then as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him and said to him, come, I will show you the man whom you seek. And when he went into her tent, there lay Sisera dead with a peg in his temple. This is pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? I mean, I look at this and think this is just wild. This is something else. So on that day, God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, in the presence of the children of Israel, and the hand of the children of Israel grew stronger and stronger against Jabin, king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin, king of Canaan. I find this a fascinating passage, just the whole thing. Kind of a short narrative on what was going on. Listen, the next time we pick up here, we're going to pick up in chapter 5. It's the Song of Deborah, but here it's a lesson of faith with Barak. Barak, he says, Deborah, I want you to go into battle with me. Okay, but a woman's going to get the glory, and it's two women. It's Deborah, and they're routing the enemy. The enemy starts to flee. It looked like an impossible situation, and then the tent peg. So what does Jael do? She gives Sisera not water to drink, but she gives him some milk, or some translations say some yogurt. And what's that do? It's a little bit heavy, lulls him to sleep. He goes to sleep, and in goes the tent peg. This is the way God does things. Impossible situations. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Listen, and God is the one who gives us the victories. Amen. God bless you guys.